So if I was going to set about starting to sketch these in, I'll kind of zoom in a little bit. But I'm kind of noticing, going to first start to notice that that sort of trapezoidal shape from the knuckles back to the wrist. And I'm noticing I'm holding my pencil up to the side of his hand, and it comes down at an angle about like this. I'm going to lightly pencil in that, and then the other side of his hand kind of forms another edge of that sort of trapezoidal shape that comes out about like this. And what I'm going to do, and then sort of I make a little curvature for the wrist. And then I also noticing this pants back more. So now we're kind of getting closer to what we're actually seeing. Okay, so now what I want to do is make a slightly arcing shape that kind of mimics, as you can see, it's not straight across. The knuckles kind of have a slight curvature to them, which is about like this, close to what I have. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to draw a little kind of pocket for where I start to see the thumb come out, and just kind of leave that there. The next thing I'm going to do is look at the index finger and notice that it kind of is continuing out at a similar angle to the rest of the hand. And then on the index finger, it kind of pans in a little bit. So there's sort of an angle happening here. Now where the fingers bend here, there's a nice kind of curvature. So I'm going to draw sort of a slightly more curving line for that. Then as I get to the end of the fingers, I'm going to look at, since when the fingers will be in different positions, for him, those two fingers are come out and form an angle together about like this. Then if I go from that middle finger back to the pinky, it kind of comes at an almost angle like this. So when I'm starting, and then the further angle of that index finger drops down more like this. So I start to have actually a pretty good sort of structure in place to sketch in the rest of the hand. So I can notice that, and kind of remember the knuckles kind of are set back a little bit. Then we come forward and that middle angle where the knuckles bend kind of come across like this. So I now kind of have that basically like glove shape. And now I can go in and kind of comfortably lightly sketch in the positioning of the fingers like this. There's a little bit of space between them here. There's sort of a nice kind of round off those edges. It makes a nice impression of the joints in the finger. And then that middle finger is kind of nice. It actually drops down a little bit. Comes out at an angle. And then the others are bent kind of away from me, so they start to kind of disappear a bit. Same with the pinky is a nicer little bend to it. So from that point, you could go in and give more description to the pose, and then come back and start looking for kind of the edge of the knuckles and things like that. So that's kind of how I like to you guys to start. So when you think about blocking in the hands, remember kind of start with whatever position they're in. Look for that sort of trapezoidal kind of base that's gonna because the hand's so complex, it's gonna form in a million different ways. Then look for the curvature of the knuckles. Then find the way that the fingers are kind of the pinky and the index finger, what kind of angle those form, and then kind of make an indication of the joints of where the fingers bend and the tips of the fingers, and then kind of go in and start only then kind of describing where the rest of the So that's how I suggest doing it, and then, you know, the thumb kind of comes off. Basically, I generally draw a little kind of wedge shape off of that trapezoid for the thumb. And it generally is going to fall in somewhere like that. So that's sort of what I'd like you guys to do for block in the hands. That way it kind of integrates itself more into the whole figure. And then as you go, kind of look for those kind of skeletal joints